Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Hello, I'm Eric.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is 6 Degrees of Schwarzenegger, the podcast where we take a long, hard look at some of our favorite action movies from the era of Arnold.
Schwarzenegger is the icon of the genre, and we're taking a deep dive into some of these 80s and 90s cult action movies and breaking them all the way down.
Oh my God, we're back for episode 2 of Rocky 4.
Yes. Rocky 4, episode 2.
Episode 2.
Yes.
Quick shout out to Eric, our guest from episode 1. It was great to
thanks
have him
again
here.
to Eric. That was awesome.
Really set the mood for us. I'm super excited to dive in here.
Theoretically, we have another guest coming later in the series to surprise you all, a Christmas miracle,
This is
as
just
it were.
full of Christmas presents for the listeners.
So thanks to everyone who's tuning in. If you tune into podcasts, I don't really know if you tune in.
I feel like everybody tunes into podcasts.
Yeah,
now.
but thanks to everyone who's listening to us, whether you're listening on our original 6 Degrees of Schwarzenegger feed, or if you're on the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network.
Oh yeah, shout out to those guys.
yeah.
They're great.
So if you're checking us out on one place or the other, check us out on the other place.
On the other place.
That doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
right.
But I will say, on our own 6 Degrees feed, we drop our episode a couple days earlier than on the podcast network. So if you need an incentive, there it is. There's also some content there you haven't heard before back in the archive.
Oh, in the olden days.
Yeah, we got some stuff about like Escape from New York and Big Trouble in Little China and Predator 2.
All that stuff's dead to me because I wasn't a part of it.
Yeah,
though.
that's true. That's true. But enough of all that. What are you drinking over there?
I'm drinking an Atlanta classic from the Creature Comforts Brewing Company. It's called Tropicalia. It's an IPA. It's a very drinkable IPA. I'm very happy with it.
Indeed. I am drinking John J. Bowman single barrel bourbon. Delicious, delicious stuff. Yeah, check
Cool.
that out if you see
Love
it. It's very good. It flies a little bit under the radar. Not everyone's like chasing after it yet, so you might actually be able to find it if you're a bourbon hunter like myself.
All right.
But yeah, we're back on our Rocky 4 shit. Well, there's a few things to talk about, I guess, before we get to the plot.
Yeah.
So, Eric and we recently watched the 2021 director's cut
Yes.
while we were preparing for this. Believe it or not, we do prepare.
We don't wing it. I promise.
So, we were preparing and we wanted to share some thoughts that we had on it. So, I think we both agreed that objectively, it's a better film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's less cartoonish was
Yep.
the thing that I settled on as my biggest difference.
Yep.
But yeah, a lot of stuff you've never seen before. So if you love Rocky 4 but you've never seen that director's cut, it's worth
Highly
watching.
recommend it.
It's a totally
Yeah.
different experience.
Yep.
A lot of stuff was fully changed around and stuff
Yep.
like that. I will always probably prefer the version I grew up watching for like nostalgia reasons.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But, the version that we're talking about, the theatrical cut, is like a fucking cartoon.
mm-hmm.
It's
Oh,
utterly ridiculous.
yes.
And the other one, it got to some of the more serious themes and just removed some of the more ridiculous shit, such as the robot.
No robot. What?
Yeah. So here were some key differences for me from the first episode that we didn't really touch on when we had Eric on in episode 1. It had a totally different open.
Yep.
It did not have Eye of the Tiger plan. It picked up with his first fight against Clubber Lang, where he lost, and then Apollo meets him at the gym and sort of lifts him back up again and trains him, and he comes back and beats Clubber.
I mean, it's much more of a summary of Rocky 3
Yeah.
than we get in the theatrical version of Rocky 4.
And I think the point of that, if there is a point, was to show the bond that Rocky and Apollo have and why the death of Apollo would hit him so heavy.
I also think that Stallone cut so much out of Rocky 4 that he wanted to be longer than 85 minutes.
That's true. He had to just make up some time as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird for me. They did it without Eye of the Tiger either, which is like the song from Rocky 3. Instead, they used, I got to look up what the other song was because I was kind of digging it. But it was another just cheesy sort of 80s power rock pop.
Straight up standard, 80s pop fare.
Sounded like, I turned to you when we were watching, I was like, this is some music that would be on like Cobra Kai.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
100%.
This is what Johnny Lawrence is listening to at home. But yeah, then it skips straight past the robot. Straight past that scene with Rocky and Adrian in the bedroom, right to like Apollo in his pool getting sort of agitated by the fanfare that Drago's got.
Which I thought was, I mean, in that sense, I think that the director's cut was a better edited movie because the inciting incident of this movie is obviously Apollo's death. And so who better to really open the movie with than Apollo? It really is almost a foreshadowing moment.
It also gets rid of the problem of the fact that Rocky 3 ends, then Rocky spars with Apollo, and then Rocky goes home from sparring with Apollo, and his kid is 4 years older.
Right.
Than he was before.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, wait a second now. So now it's just it can be 4 years later.
Yep.
Without having
There's no continuity
some
issues.
sort of weird continuity thing happening.
Yeah.
There was also when Apollo came to see Rocky, there was a scene outside Rocky's house before they went inside where Apollo, like where Rocky admits, the Soviets approached me about this exhibition, but I'm not really feeling it. And then Apollo says, I want it to be me. I want to fight him. And Rocky's telling him you got nothing left to prove. And Apollo's like, this isn't about boxing. This is about politics and about shutting down the Soviet propaganda machine. And I can get my name in the history books to boot. And like, it adds stuff that I don't know why you wouldn't have had that stuff in the theatrical version.
I agree. That was a scene that absolutely could have worked in the theatrical version. It would have actually grounded that movie a little bit.
I think in Stallone's mind, it probably slowed down the plot, and he wanted this movie just to fly by, which fly by it does.
It does. But I mean, it was like a lost moment. I'm glad he brought it back because Carl Weathers is great in this scene, just like he is in every scene he's in this movie.
And the only other thing that I will mention that would have been from episode 1 of the podcast here is there's an added scene between Adrian and Rocky where Adrian is saying like that, Apollo wanting to take this fight out of like a desire to be back in the spotlight is a bad idea. And that, Rocky, you need to convince him not to do this because this is just the reasons he wants to do this for are all wrong.
Yep, exactly.
But that sort of brings us up to stuff that was in the episode 1 that we didn't cover on. But I'll try to sum up the little bit of plot that there was.
It should take 3 seconds.
Basically, Rocky and family give Paulie a robot for his birthday.
Yay, robot.
Ivan Drago, this like Soviet super fighter, has been imported into America, sort of like a propaganda effort by the Soviet Union. They want to fight with Balboa, but Apollo wants to have like an exhibition fight with him and get himself back in the spotlight. So he comes and he convinces Rocky, hey man, be in my corner, support me. It'll make like that much more hype about the fight, and we'll flip their propaganda attempts. We'll flip it around and we'll make them look bad. And Rocky begrudgingly sort of like goes along with it. Yeah. And that's where we're at.
That's where we're at. Yeah. That was a pretty good sum up. I feel like you could have hit the robot a little bit more, but that's all right. That's fine.
So I will say the robot shows up and it's this sentient thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's like AI. You can talk to it. It is aware of what's happening around it.
Yes.
It's like, oh, you spilled your drink. Let me clean that up for you. Oh, you want a beer? Let me I'll bring you a beer without you even asking for it, it seems. Also, Paulie seems to have turned it into like a sex bot.
Yes, clearly. Oh, there's no ambiguity about this.
He's like fucking the robot as well. So Paulie's finally got like a love interest in these movies.
Good for him, man.
But
get
anyway,
it where you can get it.
So that is the more outlandish shit about this movie. But anyway, Apollo is going to fight Drago in an exhibition fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, part 2. Cut to a montage of magazine covers and newspaper headlines over the sounds of a very dramatic press conference.
This movie like loves a newspaper montage.
Oh, no, you can never go wrong with a newspaper montage. Honestly, I would argue that almost half of this movie is montage.
Okay.
Right? Sergei Eisenstein would be love it.
At
He'd
least
be so happy.
At least I want to say it's like 60% of the movie is either like flashback montage or like training montage or the fights.
Yeah, right. And these fights are edited almost like montages.
Yeah.
So
the same thing happened actually in Tango and Cash, where like every major plot point in the movie was delivered via a newspaper montage.
Look,
it's like a Stallone thing.
They got an action sequence they get to. We don't have time for plot development. Anyway, so some of the crazy stuff like Ring Magazine, it says Red Star versus Old Glory, or Las Vegas is the place for Apollo Creed's gamble. I mean, amazing puns. East versus West, wives watch and wonder. he's pushing Brigitte Nielsen so hard, like she's got her head shot on the magazine covers and stuff, and it's like she is. I think we have differing opinions on this. I never, as a kid, I never got it. Okay, but now as an adult, I'm like, God damn, Brigitte Nielsen like looks perfect in this one. Like it's just. Like she's got a perfect face. Yeah.
I can even like she's got the short hair, which I don't love.
No.
That's what puts you off.
Yeah, the short hair really puts me off.
But like God, she's like a specimen, like a perfect looking person. It's amazing how hot she was.
Yeah, see, and that actually is. I mean, look, I'm not going to kick Brigitte Nielsen out of bed, right? Like we're talking like we're talking next level here, but I like a little imperfection in my ladies, and she is too much like a marble figure.
True.
Right.
Well, she's the female equivalent of what Drago is, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so I don't know. So again, I'm not kicking Brigitte Nielsen out of bed. That's not a thing that we're having a conversation about here.
You'd have to grin and bear it.
I would grin and bear it, and I would move on. But yeah, the thing that kills me on that is the short hair. I'm just not a short hair guy.
Okay.
But anyway, back to magazine.
Back to the magazines.
Boxing magazine says Superman versus Super Height. Fight Vegas, experience and style versus youth and power. Really, the production designers who are coming up with these, they had so much fun with this stuff.
Yes.
The Sporting News has a headline: Apollo Creed, Ivan Drago meet press today, and so then we transfer to a press conference.
I paused on that, and like the text of the article underneath that was like complete nonsense, like unrelated. It was about like an auto worker strike.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm like, that's so weird to. I guess this was from the era
all the time.
This was from the era of no one's ever going to see this shit. There's not going to be like this is the very early days of home video even, and you weren't seeing this on a VHS tape.
No,
they didn't know like it's going to be remastered in 4K one day.
Yeah,
but and the others was like it was half about an auto worker strike, and then the other half was about like these churches that were giving sanctuary to refugees or whatever. And I'm just like, this is so weird. This is a weird story for the Sporting News.
Every once in a blue moon, you'll get one of those and you'll pause it. And it's pretty clear that whoever is producing these props was having fun with it. And they will just write the most insane things.
Yeah.
Like usually they just like clip from other articles. But every once in a while, and it's just joke after joke. It's like a series of one-liners or it's like knock jokes. Or it's absolutely hysterical.
That's awesome.
So we're at the press conference, and Apollo is just constantly wisecracking. Every word out of his mouth is another wisecrack.
It's like true Stallone fashion.
Yeah.
Like every fucking line is a joke.
Oh yeah,
and they're landing at like a 10% rate. Like one out of every 10 of them is maybe make you laugh.
The press is laughing politely.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, he's talking about the fight, and he felt like he has a sense of responsibility to teach Drago to box American style. And then Drago's just going to have to learn the hard way about how you do this. It's just so over the top. The press asked Rocky for any tips he'd give to Apollo during the fight, and Rocky suggests that he get a ladder. That one, I laughed. I got a chuckle out of that one. The reporters then asked Drago a question, but he's just completely stoic and silent, says nothing. And then another quip from Apollo: the man's tongue didn't come through customs. They get a big laugh on that one. Big laugh on that one.
Now, in the original script, I heard Stallone say that Drago had a lot more dialogue.
Oh yeah,
and Then Stallone said, the more that Drago talked, the less mysterious and threatening he sort of came across as.
Interesting.
And I think Stallone, in his wisdom, then decided, we'll make my girlfriend, Brigitte Nielsen, the mouthpiece. Make her a major character and give most of his lines to her. But he might be right, especially if Dolph Lundgren is definitely an unpolished actor.
Yeah.
And if he's not selling the lines, then maybe it's what? It's better if he just is the silent monster.
I will say, going back to the director's cut very briefly, he has a lot more lines in the director's cut, and he's fine.
He does fine, especially in the bit we'll come to after the Creed fight.
Yeah, exactly. So speaking of Stallone's one of his many ex-wives, Ludmilla chimes in to say that fighting Apollo is a dream come true for Drago.
Yeah.
Because Apollo is extremely well respected, and beating him will be a great victory. It's ooh, man, burn on a burn. And so, of course, Apollo is pissed off by this, and he says, nah, beating Drago is going to be easy work. You don't have to worry about it. But then Drago's Russian handler, who's not his girlfriend, Nikolai, he butts in and says that Apollo is far too old, and he's a fool to think that he can defeat Drago. And Apollo's response is that a fact? And Nikolai has strangely comic timing, goes, yes, and it could be a painful one.
Another super memorable line to me.
Yeah.
I'm oh yeah, when Stallone hits, it's oh, that sticks with you for decades.
Yeah. When he has those, every once in a while, he has these juicy lines that come through.
Yes.
But yeah, it is sort of Stallone writing is sort of a shotgun blast to a wall. Let's see, what sticks,
Absolutely,
what goes through.
Yes.
So the press conference ultimately devolves into everybody yelling at each other. And
Adrian's there just shaking her head.
What did I get myself into?
Which I'm bitch, why are you even there then?
I know, just go home.
You don't need to be here. If all you're here is to disapprove of what we're saying.
So Nikolai says that Drago shouldn't even be fighting Apollo because he's a has-been.
Oh, that hits Apollo exactly where it hurts.
Right where he wanted it to
triggers
be.
him. That's what we feel is driving Apollo.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a desire to have one last bit of whatever, a bit of spotlight.
And, using, as Eric was saying in the last episode, using patriotism as a mask for his own personal intentions, which I thought was a really, really astute observation. So Apollo and Drago then both pop to their feet as the yelling continues. Drago pushes Apollo away like he's a piece of paper. It was ridiculous. And Rocky and Duke struggle to hold back Apollo, because he wants to leap back right into him. Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. So Apollo says that they're going to settle this in the ring and tells Drago that he's history. As they're walking away, he asks Rocky, how did he do at the press conference?
That was the bit where Rocky was he was a little loud for my taste. And Apollo's but good? He's oh yeah, very good.
Very good. Yeah.
It was pretty good. The chemistry is nice with Stallone.
No, they clearly were friends. I don't know if they stayed friends, but
I hope so.
During the run of Rocky, they clearly had a good rapport. So, yeah, it works really extremely well.
In my mind, I picture them in Cabo San Lucas, riding a banana boat together.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Yeah.
Know?
Or they're they're pedaling together on one of those
bicycle boat for two. Oh, the big duck boats.
Yeah, the big duck boats. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
They're pedaling next to each other on a little pond. Anyway, so as Rocky and Apollo walk away, we cut back to Drago, and he swats down a cardboard cutout of Apollo, and yet again, another freeze frame, y'all.
Yeah,
if you're playing the game, take a drink because and this isn't the last of them.
Bottoms up.
So now we dissolve away, and we're at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and there's all these just rich people showing up in the most perfect rich person 80s attire you could possibly imagine.
The movie is unfolding at breakneck pace.
This is going so fast.
There is no Apollo training.
Nope.
Nothing like that. It's just he decided he wanted to fight Drago. 2 minutes later, it's fight night.
Oh my God!
I only just made the connection that it was the MGM Grand and it's an MGM movie.
Oh,
that it's synergy or whatever. Anyway,
yeah. So as the rich folks show up, dressed as garish as you can get in the 80s.
Yes, it's sequin ball gowns.
Oh my God, it's unreal. We cut to the dressing room, and Rocky is helping Apollo get taped up. Apollo is just at 10. He's at 11. He's so confident. He's bouncing around the room. Rocky says like, whoa, don't wear yourself out before the fight.
There's the bit about like, I feel like I could eat nails, Stallion.
That's right. And Rocky goes on like eating snails.
I never tried it before. I see him in the garden. Like, this whole scene, by the way, was cut out of the director's cut.
Yes, it was. It was not in the director's cut. We get a flashback to a couple of lines that Apollo says.
That's really weird.
Yeah.
To flash back to something that was not in the film.
Yeah, I know. But the whole snail thing was a bizarre interlude that I didn't
do you think that alone was the reason why it was cut out?
Yeah,
because that was so bad?
It didn't make any sense. Anyway, Apollo claims that he's in the best shape of his life, and Rocky says that look, if I were going to fight him, I'd postpone it for a couple of weeks. I don't know how you would do that an hour
on fight night. Yeah, this is not the time.
But still, yeah. Apollo is in complete disbelief. And Rocky says that he really doesn't know anything about Drago as a fighter. Like, we haven't done any research here.
That, to me, that's the whole thing.
What?
How are you going to fight someone that you know nothing about?
Oh, my God.
Like, this is a bad idea.
It just, the whole thing is a recipe for disaster. And
for sure.
Pretty clear that Apollo he has become a victim of his own
it's
ego.
Hubris, right?
Yeah,
like, he's just like, he's hopped up on hubris.
Oh, my God.
He's like, he's clearly like a nobody.
Yeah.
Just because I've never heard of him before.
Right. And like, who can be better than me? Yeah.
Right. I'm in the best shape of my life. It's like, yeah, but you're
you
5 years older than the last time you got beat.
And you're probably like at least 10 years older than this guy you're about to get into the ring with.
Yeah. How old do you think Drago is?
I would say
probably
he's like
25 or younger.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And Apollo's 40?
Yeah.
I mean, it's at least 15 years.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, yeah. Anyway, it's just like bleeding ego, bleeding hubris in this scene. But Apollo, leading back into his own ego, says, look, if I step aside, someone else is going to step in and beat Drago, and I'm going to be left holding my dick in my hands.
That might not have been the exact dialogue, but that's what he's getting
That's basically what
Yeah, that's funny.
So Rocky insists that it's just an exhibition, and it doesn't mean anything, but Apollo says that it's wrong. This is us against them. And I'll be honest, man.
His motives are all over the
It's
place.
all over the place. And now it's like it's 2024. I'm listening to this line, us versus them, and I'm like, dude, this is weirdly prophetic in some strange ways.
A little bit.
So Rocky's silent, and Apollo says that if he doesn't understand, he will when it's over, which is
that's the bit I think that was in a flashback.
That's the one that was in the flashback.
The director's cut, even though this scene is not in that movie, which is strange, but yeah.
So we're in the middle of, I don't know where we would be in the MGM Grand that has this massive basement with an elevator. I don't know what's going on.
There ain't no way that this is real.
No. Drago is already sweating. Like, he is just drenched in sweat. He could have just gotten out of a pool.
Sweating.
Like, why? Yeah.
Is it hot down there? Is it the boiler room?
I don't know what's going on. So Nikolai walks up to him, and he's already in the ring. By the way, this is the whole ring that he's in the basement. Nikolai walks up and gives him some last-minute instructions in Russian, and Ludmilla is like off on the side watching.
That did not sound like real language. It just sounded like gobbledygook, like he was just speaking gibberish.
Yeah.
And they're like, no one knows. No one's watching this is going to know Russian. Don't worry about it.
Famously, Dolph Lundgren is not Russian, so... but anyway, so he leaves the ring, and Ludmilla and Nikolai, like, they turn back up, and they start walking up the tunnel.
When we were watching the director's cut, there was like a slightly different version of this.
Yeah.
And maybe I was reading into it something that wasn't there, but for me, it struck me like as Nikolai's giving him all this instruction, Drago almost like rolls his eyes.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm like, is he already like sort of fed up with being sort of told what to do?
I picked up on that as well, because it actually anchors what's going to happen right at the end of the movie, which we're not going to get into, but it would be a bit of a story thread.
It'd be like foreshadow that he's not happy being like a puppet.
Right, exactly.
A propaganda puppet.
Exactly right. So, in the ballroom where the fight takes place, and this is the strangest. Why? It's just... They're almost in an amphitheater.
It's like, people are only have like 100. There's only people are only looking at the ring from one side. It's
feel like
strange.
The day before, Tom Jones was doing a concert at the same location.
Siegfried and Roy had the tigers running around.
They're the ones raising up on the platform. It is the weirdest place to have a boxing match.
Why in a ballroom?
I don't know.
That was so strange.
It was so strange. So Adrian, they in the ballroom, Adrian and Apollo come in and they take their seats. Then Nikolai and Ludmilla enter, and she stops, and clearly says something to Apollo's wife. This is like, I hope after this we can get coffee. I don't remember what the line was. Oh, be friends. Okay. And it's just so clearly like she rehearsed this with her.
She's like, they're sportsmen, not soldiers.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, no, this is the Kremlin wrote your lines for you.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
So
right?
obviously.
See, I have a hot take on this. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with Brigitte Nielsen's performance in this movie at all.
Not at all. No.
In fact, she got the Razzie for worst supporting actress for this movie.
That seems unjustified.
And I'm like, oh, and she also was named worst new star. She had this and Red Sonja came out in the same year.
Yeah.
Red Sonja is pretty bad, but I thought she was just fine. She was as good as anyone else pretty much in the movie. And I think her character comes off as insincere, but like she's supposed to, I think. Like that's her character. She doesn't mean the shit she's saying.
No, not at all.
Like everything that she's saying has just been scripted by the Kremlin because this is how we want to present ourselves. Like they had photographers there photographing the moment, and it's like this is an artificial encounter.
Yeah, I mean they shake hands and look at the photographer as well. I mean this is classic politician and politician.
Of course, this is a photo op.
Right, it's a photo op. That's exactly right. So I never.
It didn't bother me. Her performance doesn't bother me at all in the movie.
At any point in this movie.
Yeah,
right. I agree.
She's just fine.
She did not deserve the Razzie for this. So we cut back.
And then Nikolai said some shit to her like, enjoy the fight. Like I think they know what the game plan is. Was just like you're gonna
kill him,
try to hurt him as bad as possible.
Yeah.
Because I think it's all trying to goad Rocky into a fight.
Yeah, that's what they want. I feel like that's what they want.
That's the agenda.
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah, and I it would have been fun for them to explore this, and obviously they it came out in '85, but yeah, like. Rocky is the real threat. He refuses, and they know that their way into Rocky is to take down Apollo. Like, and that would have been a great thread to explore.
They want to take down Rocky because that will like fuck with American morale.
Exactly, and so it's this like 3-part plan that the Russians have plotted.
Yeah,
right. Because this single fight between Rocky and Drago,
the Rocky fight or the Apollo fight.
Well, ultimately the Rocky fight. Like if Russia can win that fight, that's the end of America. Russia wins
sure, of
the
course
Cold
they
War.
win the Cold War.
Yeah, they win the Cold War. So anyway, back down below in the basements, the ceiling opens above Drago's head. And we start hearing James Brown's I Live in America play.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
So I grew up watching this movie every week and hearing this song once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it was like just another James Brown classic. But this was a brand new song, like specific for this movie.
Oh, wow.
It was like an original song. It came out as a single off the Rocky IV soundtrack.
Wow.
And it was number 4 on the top 40 charts.
Wow.
It was the most successful song that James Brown had since 1963. And like, I feel, I feel good. No.
Yeah.
That shit. Like, it was his biggest hit. It was the second biggest hit of his career was this song.
Wow.
From this with like 40 years in between, 20 years in between.
Well, we get to hear the whole entire 3.5-minute song. It is a music video for this song. So, what happens next?
And honestly, James Brown had not had a hit in over 10 years before this. And I just imagine like the movie going audience who like all of a sudden this dude whips around and it's fucking James Brown performing some brand new song. And it's like, and like you say, it is a 4-minute long musical number.
Yep.
In the middle of the movie.
Complete
and it's like,
with like planes on strats, like being lifted by strippers on hoops.
There's all different types of showgirls bouncing
just
around
everywhere.
James Brown's fucking hair.
And oh my God, it was
a character unto itself.
Next level. And then, Apollo comes down on that platform and it's like a bull or something.
I thought it was a bull, right. And then I read somewhere where they said, because Drago's nickname was the Siberian Bull.
Okay.
Which I'm like, it was?
I don't remember that at all.
Okay, sure. But it's like, this didn't, and I never connected those dots or whatever.
Yeah.
He's dressed Apollo like a fucking like stripper version of Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Yeah. Riding that giant Soviet shit.
And the set decoration in this whole sequence is bizarre and completely non sequitur.
Yes.
We cut intermittently back to Rocky and
It's multiple
Duke
different
and Paulie.
types of showgirls and different types of costumes.
Yeah, well, and then where Paulie is standing, there's like a skull on a spear that he picks up.
I had read somewhere where they said basically they just decorated the set with whatever was like laying around the theater at the MGM Grand. I'm like, I guess so.
That tracks.
It shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Apollo. He's like hopping off the stage and doing a full dance routine with James Brown. Like, don't you have a fight to do?
And he's wearing
old man.
The costume from the previous movie. He's back in that, but it's even more ostentatious.
It's like a bookend, from the first fight with Rocky in the first movie where he's all patriotic up with the big top hat and everything.
But it is even more over the top than. See, that was 2 puns for the price of one. Top hat plus Stone's movie over the top,
like a truck, like a machine, like a machine.
Oh God!
When I turn the head around,
it's
like a switch on a machine. Truck,
God, top,
fucking over the top. I love
man,
that.
That's
movie.
a movie.
I love that.
Anyway,
that was the best bad movie ever made.
Oh my God,
think.
it was just so crazy. It's just.
But yeah, then it goes on and on. Like to where it seems like at the end, like Rocky and others are just like bored.
Yeah. It's just like they're just standing there waiting. Like, are we doing a fight? Or
Is
are we
the fight
filming a music
happening
video?
tonight?
Like, what is going on? Yeah, it takes up a lot of the movie. I would say almost 5 minutes of it, honestly. And the whole time, Drago is just still standing in the middle of the ring, going like, I don't understand
this is
what
America,
is going on. This
is
is what America is? All right. So the song finally ends. And Apollo thanks Rocky for doing this with him and says, God, I feel born again, which is...
The hubris is like cranked all the way
Oh,
up.
my God.
Shout out also to Stu Nahan, like the ringside announcer guy who was in all the TV announcer guy. Because he was the announcer in all the previous Rocky movies, and this is his one and only appearance in this movie.
Okay.
But he had been in all the Rocky movies as like the announcer of the big fight.
Nice.
So it's like, hey, Stu. And he was in fucking Fast Times at Ridgemont High, if you remember.
No, I don't remember at all.
Has his little like, he won the surf contest flashback, and he's doing a TV interview, and it's Stu Nahan, and he's like, "Dude, where'd you get this jacket?" It's like, I got this from the network.
I don't remember that at
Stu
all.
Nahan
That's amazing.
was like a real life, sports announcer who got these gigs in these movies.
I want to call out the ringmeister though, in the center of the ring.
Guy.
Most epic mustache I've ever seen. And he's smoking a stogie while he's reading all of these names.
So I thought for sure that guy has to be like a real ring announcer.
Oh, he has to be.
He's got that like carnival, like three-ring circus vibe about him, you know? But this dude, his name was Leroy Neiman, and he was a pretty famous painter. He was not.
That was not what I was expecting you to say.
So at the end of Rocky 3, when Rocky and Apollo punch, and it freeze frames and turns into this really impressionistic painting of the two, he did that painting. He does these like impressionistic like paintings. The paintings are pretty fucking good.
I mean, I like that painting. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's who this guy was. But that was his just everyday mustache.
Oh my God,
Leroy Neiman.
That is next level. Well, first, before announcing the boxers, he induces Rocky, who like sort of politely waves to the crowd, and everybody loves Rocky. But then he goes into inducing Apollo, and this list of nicknames goes on interminably long.
I jotted it down.
Okay, great.
So before, I feel like the first time we met Apollo, he was the master of disaster, Apollo Creed. But now he's the dancing destroyer, the king of Sting. My favorite is the Count of Montefisto and the Master of Disaster.
At one point, Rocky goes, "You have enough nicknames there, Apollo."
Yeah. And then when the dude introduced Drago, it was just like these horrible booing.
Yeah, just vicious,
very
booing.
harsh reception for Drago.
Yeah. While this is all going on, Apollo's mouthing out, calling out to Drago, "I want you, I want you."
That was the bit in that documentary we watched where Stallone pointed out Apollo didn't have his gloves on.
Right. He's just pointing with his finger.
How did that fucking happen? How are they filming without him wearing gloves?
I didn't even notice that.
Me neither. I've watched this movie for 30 years and I never noticed that.
So in that Making of the Director's Cut documentary, before the film cuts, you can hear the PA going, "Oh shoot, Apollo doesn't have his gloves on, and then like they realize it.
Oh, really?
And then they still use that take in the theatrical cut. So
That's amazing.
the ref gives instructions to both of the fighters, and Apollo's trying to psych out Drago, but he's just a column. I mean, he's nothing. He's completely expressionless. Creed tries to knock gloves with Drago, hits the gloves, and Drago's hands do not move at all.
Which is another very memorable moment that was removed in the director's cut.
Yeah, he took it from the
director's cut. Instead, he had like Drago hitting Apollo's gloves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why would you remove that? It was just like another weird decision.
I agree. I thought that was a bad change. I thought Apollo hitting Drago's gloves and them not moving was terrifying. And I thought it was appropriately
because it's like, oh, this dude's like superhuman strong.
Yeah.
And he says, "You will lose."
Yeah, one of his few lines
super
of
memorable.
dialogue.
Yeah,
I know. Everything that Drago says in this movie is memorable. So the fight is about to start, and Americans are all of a sudden looking very concerned about this situation, which they should. But Apollo completely ignores it, and he continues to play through plays to the crowd. And then
he's primping his hair, which was another I feel like a callback to Rocky 1 maybe after he was primping his hair, and they're like, I've never seen a fighter so concerned about his hair before. But I think it shows that he's not taking the fight very seriously.
No, not at all. Round one.
Carl Weathers' physique. Can we talk about it?
Oh my God, cut! Like the guy is
unbelievable.
I mean, all three of them. Rocky. Stallone, Weathers, and Lundgren.
Yeah.
Just peak physical specimens.
In fact, Carl Weathers' physique almost like there was something less steroidy and more natural looking because he wasn't as he didn't have no body fat. He looked
that's true.
But he just looked like just a natural athlete.
I mean, it's like we talk about modern superhero movies and how all the men are just these unrealistic body standards. They were doing that back in the 80s.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, just unbelievable. Yeah, all of them are perfect specimens. It's crazy. So the round starts, round one, and Apollo just starts going at Drago, jabs at him, taking a little pot shots, but nothing's getting through. There's a point at which Apollo slips on the canvas and gets a little panicked at it for a second.
Right.
Yeah.
It was all the pre-fight dancing, man.
Yeah, exactly.
But they also, I think the director's cut edited that slip out as well.
They completely edited the slip out.
They edited the fight to seem more competitive.
Yes,
right?
Indeed. Yeah.
And there's a lot more successful offense from Apollo in the early part of the fight. And a lot more I think they cut away to the Soviet, like to Ludmilla and Nikolai, and they looked a little more concerned about oh, this isn't going as we thought it would or whatever.
At least in the theatrical version, though, Apollo.
Yeah, that's right. It's a big slip.
Yeah, big slip. Apollo continues to take these punches. Nothing is getting through on Drago. Nothing at all. And by this point, Drago still hasn't taken a single punch.
Right.
He's just standing there taking all of it. Drago's cornerman shouts out a command in Russian, and then all of a sudden, Drago is a fucking predator.
What do you think? What do you think he said?
I know, just kill him. That's what I think he said. I think he said kill him.
Fuck him up.
Yeah, it's done. Go time. Yeah,
attack.
I mean, just attack. Yeah. So at this point, Drago just utterly destroys him.
Rocky went to the get out of there really instantly the first punch, get out of there, and it's oh boy,
unbelievable.
If we're playing the drinking game, you gotta we're gonna get fucking hammered here.
This is a new element of this drinking game.
Anytime someone says get out of here in a Rocky fight, get out of there, get out of there. He's getting killed out there.
Or any variation of that. Yeah. So the bell finally dings, but Drago keeps fighting. He doesn't stop hitting him.
Right.
And Creed is just knocked out on his feet, and both fighters' cornermen jump up into the ring, and they have to pull him apart. I mean, it's vicious.
Right.
So Duke is super pissed, and Rocky, he helps Apollo back into his corner, and Rocky and Drago lock eyes, and it's straight a foreshadowing moment.
Yeah, he sort of shakes his head what is this?
It's
this dude's soft.
This is a waste of my time. Yeah, exactly.
There was in the director's cut, I watched them side by side earlier, and it was there was the first bit that was in the theatrical version. Then they there was even a longer, more intense stare down between the two. It's which I thought was kind of a good touch. Rocky looked like he wanted to fight Drago right then.
Yeah.
And it's okay, that's kind of works, you know.
All right. So, meanwhile, Ludmilla and Nikolai, they look on very satisfied with what's going on and then share a cigarette, which I thought was a weird move. But
it looked like Ludmilla seemed like she was getting like an overtly like a sexual gratification from what she was saying. Like she was like getting off. This was like the post-coital cigarette almost.
So Rocky tells Apollo that the fight is over and that they've got to stop it now. Like, yes, and that is the right.
There is no world in which this fight would be allowed to continue.
No, not a chance. I mean, in one round, Apollo is almost just completely knocked out.
Yeah, it's like this is done. There's nothing left to be accomplished here.
You're not coming back on points. You're not knocking Drago out. You're done.
All you're
done.
Yeah.
So Apollo says that he's here to fight and demands that the fight go on.
See, in the director's cut, Rocky is like, "Don't do this to me," to Apollo, and Creed is like, "I'm doing this for me," and it was like, it was weird to be like, "Don't do this to me," like, but I think it's like, don't put me in this position.
Don't put me in this position. That's
like,
the way I interpret
it. Where I gotta let you get killed out here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, but anyway.
So the commentators confirm that Ivan Drago is definitely for real. I mean, do we have any concern? I mean, I wasn't.
I think we know that now. That's an understatement.
So the bell sounds, and now it's time for round 2. So Apollo instructs Rocky not to stop the fight, no matter what.
In the director's cut, he was like, "If you're my friend, don't stop this
just
fight, no matter what." It's like, dude,
absolute guilt trip.
Oh man, that's tough.
So anyway, Apollo looks at his wife. It's clearly concerned, but Apollo's like, nah, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Right.
So Apollo tries to get back.
We got to say the referee deserves, I feel like, some blame here too.
Yeah.
Because the referee should not have allowed this fight to continue.
Oh no!
Should have been like,
the ref should have called it after
this is an
round.
exhibition.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're done here.
We're done here. Yeah.
This isn't for any type of championship. This doesn't mean anything.
There's no point in putting people's lives at risk over this. You clearly are not at a position where you can take on this fighter. Like, it's just not. Yeah.
The referee Lou Filippo, who was like the referee in all the Rocky movies up until this point. I think he was like also a real life referee. Like he would referee the high profile boxing matches of the 70s and 80s.
All right. Well, there you go. So Apollo tries to get his groove back, right? But does not get his groove back.
And
Drago.
It's edited differently, right? In the director's cut, where it does this fight, the round does start off a lot more like of an even exchange.
Yeah, exactly.
Before Drago takes over.
Right, and that was Stallone's intention, is he thought it would be more effective if it's like, okay, he's not a robot. If Apollo can get to him a little bit, then it's more reasonable that Rocky can get to him later.
It also makes it more reasonable that they're allowing this fight to continue.
Yeah, I agree. So, but it doesn't matter. Drago is just following Apollo around the ring. It's just Drago tries to psych Apollo out.
He's just sort of standing there.
He doesn't even have his fist up.
Him.
Yeah, come and hit me. It's just crazy. So, but it doesn't take long. Drago goes back on the attack and just absolutely ruptures Apollo. I mean, just decimates him. Apollo's wife is calling out for the fight to be stopped. The ref tries to stop the fight, but Drago shoves him shoves him to the side. Like, I don't even give a shit about you anymore.
Well, you would think that would be like an automatic. You're disqualified.
You're disqualified, right? Instantly, but apparently
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It's an exhibition. Who cares? Duke starts screaming at Rocky, like, throw the damn towel.
Throw the damn towel.
Throw the damn towel.
That's a meme, isn't it?
Yeah, it's straight up. It has to be.
That's maybe like one of the most memorable moments of the whole movie is that throw the damn towel. People still use that today, like they're on GIFs and stuff.
Really?
Like when any sort of sporting event's getting out of hand and it's like, throw the damn towel. Because he is so... The emotion on the actor's face, Tony Burton, is like incredible.
I mean, he's totally believable that he's watching his friend be murdered up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Apollo sees that Rocky's grabbing the towel and getting ready to throw it, and then like yells at him, "No, don't throw in the towel." Yeah. So Drago connects one final punch that just like drops Apollo to the canvas. Clearly dead. He's like twitching on the mat. I mean, like there can be no ambiguity about this.
There was like these slow motion reactions from everyone ringside. Ludmilla's like delighted.
Oh yeah, of course she is. She just came.
See, now in the theatrical cut, right, Rocky's there for an eternity.
Oh my God, just
with his like with the towel
waffling
like
back and
cocked,
forth.
like we're gonna throw this. It's agonizing and it's inexcusable for Rocky not to have done it. And I don't to be honest, though, would it even have mattered? The
No.
referee had been shoved aside.
Yeah.
Like, Drago's not going to see the towel and be like, oh, I guess I
Absolutely.
should stop now. But in the director's cut, Duke tells him to throw the towel one time,
Yep.
and Rocky picks up the towel, and before he could even throw it, like, it's over.
Yeah, it's over.
You
Right.
know?
And,
we don't get that moment. We don't get to throw the damn towel line. It's not in the director's cut,
It's
which
not,
is
it's
that's
completely
tough.
cut from the director's cut.
You're gonna miss that.
So, and I kind of liked the inner turmoil of Rocky trying to honor his friend, but also like know that he's dooming him to his demise by not. So that hesitation actually worked for me in the theatrical version.
Well, it's like a Viking death. It's like a gladiator death. Right?
exactly.
Like, I want to be carried out on my shield.
Yeah,
Like I'd rather lose in the ring than have the fight stopped.
Right, because like I think to a certain extent, Apollo's monologue from early in the movie got to Rocky, and I think a part of him knows that if I throw in the towel and this fight is over, Apollo's legacy is decimated. It's done.
And he'll maybe never forgive me for doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I kind of like that moment, but I did like the director's cut interpretation as well.
It was a much more reasonable way for it to happen.
Yeah.
Because there ain't no way in real world this would have reached this point.
No.
So the way they cut it in the director's cut was like, no, before he could even throw the towel, like it was over
Draga's
already. It was too late.
Yeah. So as this happened, apparently no one has any ability to stop photographers and reporters in this world, because this is the first of a couple of times where these reporters and photographers storm the mat.
Well, in this particular case, there wasn't even a count out.
He gets on the ground and boom,
they're
everybody
in.
knows.
It's like, wait, the referee hasn't said the fight's over.
No.
Like, what's happening here?
When
This
his
is
body is
crazy.
twitching on the ground, everybody just knows. So everybody rushes into the ring.
Which truly in fights, the ring does fill up after the fight's over with all these photographers and stuff like that, but not
in
before
this
there's
instant,
a count out.
Right, exactly. That's my point.
And not if someone's in obvious need of like urgent medical attention.
So while the press is just like all over this, Duke and Rocky, like they get over to Apollo. Something's clearly wrong. Rocky's begging for the press to back up. They're not listening. Drago's announced the winner and then does an interview with the announcer.
Imagine that. They're like, he's lying here seemingly like unresponsive. And the winner is Ivan Drago. Let's interview him here. That's crazy.
Dude, cold. I don't know what's colder, the fact that Drago gives the interview or the fact that the American journalists are asking for the interview at this point.
Exactly.
But Drago gives a very brief interview, and then one of the most iconic lines in movie history is uttered by Drago. One of like 3 lines he has in this movie.
Yeah.
If he dies, he dies. Just unreal.
That's one of the most cold-blooded lines ever in movies.
Yeah. But it's great. It's a great moment, and it really establishes him as a real
That's
threat.
the thing, right? Like, the movie is 75% ass.
Yeah.
Man, when you get these really good, memorable moments sprinkled in.
I know.
And in the director's cut, right, Drago had a lot more dialogue.
Yes, he did. He actually had like almost 5 lines of
where he's
dialogue.
like, soon the whole world will know my name.
Yeah.
Drago.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, he's doing okay work. I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah. So Rocky is cradling Apollo's lifeless body. He stares up at Drago.
Yeah, we know what's going to happen next.
Freeze frame, motherfucker.
Finish that drink.
Yeah, you need
Finish
another
that
one.
drink.
Go get another drink because we're not done with the freeze frames.
No, not at all. Oh, my God.
So great. So great. Well, in that freeze frame, I think we're going to leave it there for this episode.
All right. I love it, man.
Yeah,
this movie is wild.
We're getting into it. Now we're in the meat of it. Now it's nothing but montages and boxing all the way down.
There's like 2 to 3 scenes of dialogue for the rest of the movie.
Yep, exactly.
It's crazy.
There's almost no story here. It's a real challenge for us to like really expand this into legitimate episodes.
Yeah, so come join us. Listen to us try to talk about it. But as always, thanks for listening. Happy holidays.
Yeah, always. And we'll be back.
I live